My break was Sinatra. I wrote Monday Morning Quarterback for Sinatra. It was at the end of his career, it launched mine. We met him backstage at Caesar's Palace, and my mother said, I used to go and line up and see you at the London Palladium. And he said, oh, was I a teen idol? And I said, oh, come on, you know, you started the whole thing of the teen idols. He was lovely, lovely. And then I ended up doing a lot of R&B. I was introduced to Leon Silvers III, and I wrote 112 songs for him in about a year and a half. I had cuts on the charts for like 6 months, 9 months. I had 50 cuts, just going cuts. And it was wonderful. Evelyn Champagne King, the Whispers, the Spinners, Gladys Knight. It was just really fun. And because of that, I ended up getting signed at Alma Irving Music, which was part of Rondor at A&M Records. And then I got I had a Whitney Houston, Nobody Loves Me Like You Do, which was a duet with Jermaine Jackson. And actually that song was a #1 country song for Anne Murray and Dave Loggins. And it also was #1 jukebox, #1 AC and all of that. And then, oh my God, my favorite cut I ever had was a duet with Aretha and the Four Tops with Levi Stubbs. And it was a love song called If Ever a Love There Was. And it was about how two people once had this amazing relationship, but it was a star-crossed, you know, if ever a love there was, that was the time. First of all, her voice is so spectacular. And when she reaches this one note, she goes up and up and up. She does this vocalizing. And then Kenny G comes in, and Kenny G's sax meets her voice. And they are the same note and the same texture and the same tone. And you go, oh, oh, oh. They really did have a relationship when they were young. And this was almost their story, I think, you know, star-crossed, you know, young love. I started writing musicals when I was 18. When I was a child in London, my father and mother used to take me for my birthdays. I would always get to go to the musicals, and I would see My Fair Lady, The King and I, all of these wonderful shows, and I fell in love with musical theater. So at one point, my father said to me, oh, you want to write songs? You know how fathers are. They don't believe that you can really do this thing. They went, do you want to write songs? Oh, write a song about heart transplants. I wrote a song called You're Breaking Somebody Else's Heart. And I took it to a publisher one day. Oh, I was about 20. And I went to this publisher and I played him this song. And he said, you know, you should write a musical. That belongs in a musical. So I wrote a musical called Triangles, Circles, and Squares, which was about a guy who gets a heart transplant, and the heart is still in love with the other guy's girlfriend. And that was my first musical, and the first of 13 musicals that I stuck in the drawer. I got known as a pop writer, and I got to write with bands and with producers and singers, and I'm still doing it. I love doing it. It's so much. There is nothing more fun than getting a great idea. And you know, I'm writing with a girl named Karen Souza in Argentina. I had a bunch of songs on her last record. She's so sexy. She's so talented. I love her voice. I love working with her. And so we work on Skype because she's in Buenos Aires. So I sit here with my cup of tea and she sits there with hers, and we write, and then we've got, you know, various composers that we work with. Each time I would write a show, and I would do the book music and lyrics, or sometimes it would be a different composer or something, you know, I'd have various combinations, but I was learning how to do it. The only way to do something well is to do it many, many, many times, and you can't learn it in a class what to do. You can only learn how to do it by doing it, because in your brain something clicks that I should have done this, or oh, I see, or you hear something somebody else does. That when I got the call saying, would you be interested in writing this show in Holland called Soldier of Orange? And I said, would I? I was the ripe plum ready to fall down from the tree. I was just, yes, please, please let me write it. Because I wanted to do it. I had learned what to do and what not to do, and I knew how to do it, and I knew how to do it, and I knew the difference between being a pop writer who can write a hit song and how to come from story and theater and build plot and move plot forward, and how to come from character and these things. I had done it so many times that I'd worked with a couple of directors. There were a couple of small productions, and I learned how to do it. And so I just started doing it, and I got together with Tom Harriman, who co-wrote the Soldier of Orange with me. It was 4 years of it. We went to Holland a million times. They hired us, they paid us, they were fabulous to us, you know, and now we are, knock wood, 2,200,000 tickets sold. It's incredible, but it's been sold out every night.
Unbelievable.
And
won the Holland is the best musical
Best
every
musical
year, pretty much
for
winning.
2 years. And then this year we lost to you because you did Bodyguard,
Yes,
and we were second. When I was a teenager, I used to write poetry. And it was always this angst-filled poems about boys. I was very British, so I'd write these sort of romantic poems that were really gaggy. They were so emotional. And I just put them aside. And then one year I went to London for a year, and I did volunteer work at the Oxford and St. George Foundation, which was a charity. And I went over there, I would go over there, and I worked with this. Well, they were all sort of latchkey kids. They were about 15 or 16. And there was this one boy who came to me and he said, I'd like to teach you how to play the guitar. Well, I liked my nails. I didn't really want to learn to play the guitar. I had already played violin and I'd played piano. And well, as a kindness to him, as a mitzvah to him, I decided I would let him teach me a few chords on the guitar. So I took the train and the bus and all across London to get to where he lived in a little bedsit. I went over to his place and he taught me how to play the basic chords on the guitar. And so when I came back from London after the year, my father said, so what did you do in London? Well, la 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 la, and I learned to play a few chords on the guitar. Well, he was a musician in Vegas, my dad, and he had friends who were musicians, and one of them was importing guitars from Japan. Bought me a guitar, and I took this cheap Japanese guitar that he bought me, and I started sitting down on the grass in the garden or wherever and taking these absolutely awful poems that I'd written when I was younger. And I wrote everything in A minor because that was the only key I knew. So I wrote like 200 songs in A minor. The first 200 are the hardest, you know. And eventually I learned there were other keys, but I had a publisher say to me, you're not writing lyrics, you're writing poetry. I said, what's the difference? And he said, I don't know, I just know when I hear it. I said, well, that's not very helpful. And so when I wrote a book, some years later when I was teaching at UCLA, I was teaching advanced lyric writing for 8 years at UCLA. But one of the things I did was define the difference between lyrics and poetry for songwriters. Right. Lyrics are of the heart, yes, and poetry is of the head. You have to read it over and over again to get the meaning and the subtle meaning and the sub-meanings, right, whereas the lyrics have to be right in your face. They're conversations between two people. Yeah. You also need to have structure in a pop song. In a poem, it can just be a long meandering thing with no rhymes and no ending. But a pop song needs to have development, in my opinion, and then I think it needs to develop and tell a story that has a beginning, a middle, and a tie-up. When I teach, this is what I say. I say, look at the wall. See those two paintings there? What do they have in common? And the kids like look over at the picture and they have no idea what I'm talking about. And I say, they're all in a frame. They're both in a frame. That's the difference. So it's not what's the frame is, which is the formula that you write a song in. It's what you put inside the frame. You have to learn to write within the framework of being a songwriter, but still write something completely original to you. Learn the difference between ideas that come to you and ideas that come through you. If you want to be an original, the ideas that come to you are the ones where you have to work hard to find them. You know, you have an idea and it's pretty good, and then you work it, you go, oh, I think this works.
It's kind of the craft.
The idea that comes through you is the one that's on the page before you even realize you thought it. And then you look at it and go, oh my God, nobody's ever said that before, should I use it? And of course you do. So the idea is to be an original, continue to be an original, and don't get caught up in outcome, because outcome will never be what you think it's going to be, ever, ever, ever in the world. Process is the purpose, and if you're going to write one thing down from just listening to me talking, write that down. The process is the purpose. It's all about doing it. It's not about becoming famous or successful or making money. It's about the doing. If you love doing the writing and you just enjoy every moment of that and it's fun, oh my God, it's not work. It will come to you. But don't worry if it doesn't. Just do it because you love it. Oh, one more piece of advice. It's a shameless plug, but I wrote a book called The Art of Writing Love Songs. And one of the major features of it is teaching people how to write from somebody else's point of view. Because I always say, you know, like, do you really care what I did yesterday? Write about the person who's going to be sung to. Not even about the singer, but what does the listener want to hear? Jerry Knight was assigned to do If Ever a Love There Was, which was the song I told you about. Clive Davis asked him to produce it. And he was going to produce it on the Four Tops. And I said, Jerry, it's a duet. It's a duet. You're going to do it with the Four Tops? I don't get it. I said, there's got to be a female involved here somewhere. He said, I'll figure it out. He goes to Detroit, and he's in the studio with Levi, and they listen down to the song, and Levi loves the song, and he says that it's a duet, you know? We need a female here. And he said, I'm going to get Ree. And he says, Ree? He said, yeah, Ree. I want Ree to do it with me. And picks up the phone and dials Aretha and says, I want you to hear this. Holds the phone up to the speakers and plays the song. And she says, I want to do it. I love it. And then they recorded it together.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that a nice little...
I love that story.
We all have all this material that nobody knows about. And it's usually the stuff that's better than the stuff that got recorded. Quite often, we have our gems, our beautiful songs, the ones we love the most. These songs are just lost. They're in a drawer. They're on a shelf at a publisher's office. They're on our computer and we never listen to them. And now you writers out there, you can actually send people to your qWaqqchat account to listen to your material, to play your material, to then contact you and say, gee, you know what, I've heard that song, I love it. The world has become simple. We're all equal in this quest to be discovered and to be successful, because it can happen to any, I don't care if you live in Peoria or San Francisco or anywhere in the world even, but if you have the best song and it's on qWaqqchat, you have a chance to let it be heard. There are so many wonderful songs out there that are waiting to be heard and be discovered. And because of qWaqqchat and Judd Friedman, we have the opportunity. So go on qWaqqchat.